Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be invisible in a world that moves too fast to notice? To wake up each morning with nothing but the clothes on your back, the chill of the wind against your skin, and a desperate hope that today might be different? Elias, a homeless artist, knew that feeling all too well. Nights spent shivering under bridges and days scavenging for food had become his reality. Yet he carried a secret, a talent so raw and true that it could not remain hidden forever. With every brushstroke on torn cardboard or discarded canvas, Elias poured out his soul. His paintings told stories of hunger, heartbreak, resilience, and the small fragments of beauty he glimpsed in the city around him. And one day, a passerby paused, not out of pity, but because something in his work struck them like a lightning bolt. That moment would change everything. It was not just a painting, it was a declaration, a voice rising from the margins of society. In that instant, Elias's life, once defined by invisibility, would pivot toward opportunity, recognition, and a future he had only dared to imagine. Could a single painting really transform a life? For Elias, it did. This story will take you into the streets where the invisible survive, where every day is a struggle against hunger, cold, and indifference. You will walk alongside Elias, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders as he clings to the one thing that makes him feel alive: his art. You will witness the transformative power of creativity and determination. Elias's paintings are more than colors on cardboard. They are the reflections of a man who has endured loss, loneliness, and rejection. Each brushstroke captures emotion so raw that it touches the hearts of those who stop to look. You will experience the moments when strangers pause, when curiosity sparks connection, and when human kindness breaks through the walls of isolation. Along the way, you will meet individuals who influence his journey, some offering help, others testing his resolve. Through these encounters, you will see how resilience, honesty, and dedication can open doors that once seemed forever closed. This is a story of inspiration, of rising from adversity, and of discovering that the human spirit can shine brightest in the darkest circumstances. By the end, you will understand how one man's determination to remain true to his art led not only to personal transformation, but also to the awakening of those around him. The streets that once ignored him now became the stage where his talent was recognized, his voice was heard, and his life changed forever. Elias had once dreamed of being recognized for his art, sketching in crowded studios with sunlight streaming through tall windows, imagining galleries filled with people admiring his work. But life had other plans. Now he lived in the city's forgotten corners, under bridges, in abandoned alleys, and on worn park benches. His skin was weathered bronze from years exposed to wind, rain, and sun. His eyes, a deep brown, carried both the weight of hardship and the quiet spark of hope that refused to die. Hair matted from days without a proper shower framed his face, streaked with grime and paint. Each day began with uncertainty. Food was never guaranteed. Shelter was temporary at best. Yet Elias carried with him a small, battered backpack filled with salvaged brushes, dried paint tubes, and scraps of cardboard. These were his tools, his companions, and his lifeline. He painted not for fame or recognition, but for survival, and for the rare moments when he could pour his soul onto a surface untouched by the indifference of the world. The city around him was a study in contrasts. Towering glass skyscrapers reflected wealth and power, while hidden alleyways told stories of struggle and neglect. Streetlights flickered over cracked sidewalks, illuminating the discarded remnants of life. From a distance, people walked past, faces glued to their phones or lost in hurried conversations, scarcely noticing the figure hunched over a cardboard canvas, lost in color and line. Despite his circumstances, Elias found beauty where others saw decay. A puddle reflecting neon lights became a mirror of hope. A tattered umbrella leaned against a wall offered the perfect backdrop for an impromptu composition. Every object, every shadow, became a piece of the story he painted, a story of survival, resilience, and the undying human spirit. Beneath the surface, Elias's heart carried quiet fears. The fear of being forgotten entirely, of leaving no mark, haunted him daily. He worried that no one would ever see his talent, that his art might vanish along with him into the city's anonymity. Yet alongside this fear was a hidden desire, to be recognized, to have someone see not just his paintings but him. the man behind the brush. Even in his solitude, Elias remained deeply human. He laughed quietly at small joys, like the rare kindness of strangers or a warm meal found in unexpected places. He flinched at harsh words or rejection, yet he never stopped painting. Every stroke was an act of defiance, a testament that despite the world's neglect, he still existed, and his truth still mattered. It was a chilly evening when something unusual happened, something that would shift Elias's world, quietly but irreversibly. He had settled in his usual corner beneath a bridge, the concrete cold against his back, cardboard laid out before him as a makeshift easel. His hands were stained with layers of dried paint, fingers stiff from the cold, yet he continued to work, blending muted grays and deep blues into a cityscape he had seen countless times but could never fully capture. As he painted, a woman approached. She wore a coat that had clearly been tailored, shoes polished enough to reflect the bridge's flickering light. Elias flinched slightly. Strangers rarely stopped. Most ignored him. Some tossed a coin and hurried on. But she lingered, her gaze locked on his work. "What is this?" she asked softly, not condescendingly, but with genuine curiosity. Elias didn't respond at first, uncertain if she would leave or mock him. Finally, he shrugged. "Just what I see," he murmured. Her eyes softened. "You see more than most," she said, her voice carrying an odd mixture of surprise and admiration. "There's honesty here. Pain, hope, life." Elias's heart skipped. Compliments were rare, and her words felt like a bridge connecting him to the world outside his small corner of survival. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook, flipping through the pages to compare sketches she had made herself. "You have something rare," she said. "Something people overlook. Don't let it stay hidden." Elias blinked. No one had ever spoken to him this way. Hidden behind her polite tone was urgency, as if she knew something he did not. A subtle insistence that he was on the brink of something bigger than himself. But what he didn't realize was that this encounter was only the beginning. The woman left, but not before pressing a small piece of paper into his hand, an address and a single word scrawled below it. "See?" The message nagged at him all night. Should he go? Could he risk stepping into a world that had long ignored him? Hunger, fear, and exhaustion battled curiosity, but by dawn, he found himself staring at the address, trembling, torn between staying invisible and stepping forward. Over the next few days, a subtle shift occurred. More people paused at his corner. Some observed quietly, others asked questions, rarely giving anything tangible, but each glance fueled a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Elias began to notice patterns. A recurring figure at a distance, brief smiles exchanged from passing strangers, whispered encouragements. The world, which had once ignored him completely, seemed to be paying attention, though he could not yet understand why, and in this uncertainty, the tension grew. Each day, each passerby, each fleeting moment held a question. Was he truly ready for recognition? Could he trust the attention, or would it fade like all else in his life? For the first time, Elias felt a stir of possibility, a gap between his past of invisibility and a future he could not yet see. It was both thrilling and terrifying, and it was enough to keep him painting, each stroke heavier with emotion, each layer of color infused with hope, fear, and the raw truth of a life that refused to be ignored. Little did he know, the next brushstroke would not just capture his world, it would change it. In the days that followed, Elias's life began to shift in ways both subtle and profound. The address the woman had left led him to a small, modest studio tucked in a quieter part of the city. It wasn't the polished gallery he had imagined. It was a space of possibility, cluttered with easels, sketchbooks, and the faint smell of paint. There, he met Clara, the woman from the bridge, who explained her connection to a local art collective seeking authentic voices overlooked by conventional galleries. For the first time, Elias felt a sense of inclusion. Yet along with that warmth came anxiety. His world had always been one of survival. Now he was navigating a realm of opportunity where expectations weighed heavily. Every brushstroke mattered more than ever. Every choice could either advance him or reinforce the fears that had haunted him for years. He began to paint with renewed purpose. The cardboard scraps from streets were replaced with proper canvases, colors richer and more vibrant than anything he had used before. Each painting captured the grit of his former life, the cold streets, the shivering nights, the small gestures of kindness he had witnessed, but through them ran an unmistakable thread of hope and resilience. But recognition came with complexity. Not all who approached him had pure intentions. Some admired his work, but questioned his talent, offering critiques sharp enough to cut, while others sought to exploit his story for their gain. A gallery owner, Mr. Whitman, showed interest in featuring his paintings. Yet Elias couldn't shake the unease in the man's smile, a combination of charm and calculation that left him wary. Meanwhile, old habits lingered. The city streets still called to him, whispering familiarity in their cracked sidewalks and dimly lit corners. He often returned to his bridge, sketching scenes that others overlooked, capturing the humanity in the unnoticed. These moments reminded him of where he came from and grounded his creativity. Clara became a constant presence, encouraging him, challenging him, and sometimes confronting him when self-doubt crept in. "Your art isn't just about survival anymore, Elias," she said one evening, her eyes bright with conviction. "It's about truth. You have a voice people need to hear. Don't shrink from it." The tension between opportunity and fear grew. Every exhibition, every new face that paused to study his work brought exhilaration and anxiety. He feared failure, feared losing the raw authenticity that made his art compelling, and feared that the world's attention might slip away as quickly as it had arrived. And yet, amid these pressures, Elias discovered resilience he had never fully recognized. The man who once painted to stay sane on cold nights now painted to communicate, to inspire, to connect. Each layer of color, each careful stroke became a bridge, linking him to the city, to people, and perhaps most importantly, to himself. But just as momentum began to build, a challenge emerged, a miscommunication with Mr. Whitman, a painting damaged in transit, and whispers of doubt from those around him. The precariousness of his new life reminded Elias that success was not guaranteed. Every triumph carried the potential for disappointment, every opportunity a shadow of risk. And yet, even in this uncertainty, Elias pressed on. Each moment of tension, each trial, only reinforced his determination to honor his truth through art. What had begun as a struggle for survival had transformed into a test of courage, authenticity, and the human spirit's capacity to rise above hardship. Little did Elias know, the most defining challenge, the turning point that would test everything he had built, was approaching. It happened one cold, rainy evening. Elias had just completed a large painting, a piece unlike any he had ever done. It depicted the city as he had known it, the dimly lit alleys, the glimmering reflections of neon signs in puddles, the humanity in the overlooked corners. Every detail was precise, every stroke infused with years of hardship, longing, and quiet hope. He had placed it carefully in the corner of the studio, drying under the soft glow of the lamp. For the first time, Elias felt a sense of pride so deep that it brought tears to his eyes. It was more than a painting. It was his story, his voice, his truth laid bare. But when he returned the next morning, the painting was gone. Not moved, stolen. Panic and disbelief surged through him. Hours passed as he searched the studio, the streets, the nearby alleys. Questions swirled in his mind. Who would take it? Why? Was it to destroy him or to exploit his work? Clara, noticing his distress, tried to calm him. "Elias will find it. Someone who understands the value of your work will have taken it. But you have to trust yourself. You've come too far to let fear take over now." Fear battled determination inside him. The painting represented years of struggle, the culmination of every lesson, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt. Losing it felt like losing a piece of himself. Yet he realized something crucial. He could not let this theft define him. That night, Elias returned to the bridge where he had once painted to survive. He spread out his remaining scraps of cardboard, dipped his brush into paint, and began again. With every stroke, he poured not only skill and creativity, but also resilience, defiance, and courage. The act of painting itself became a declaration. He would not be broken, his voice would not be silenced, and his truth would find its way into the world. Word of the stolen painting spread quickly through the small circles of the city's art community. Offers to exhibit his work, previously tentative, became urgent. Strangers and patrons alike sought him out, expressing admiration and curiosity. Elias began to understand that the value of his work was not confined to a single canvas. His art, his story, had already begun to ripple beyond his reach. In that moment, Elias crossed a threshold. He could no longer remain in the shadows, hesitant and fearful. The streets of hardship had shaped him, but now he had to step fully into the world he had glimpsed through his art. Every brushstroke from that night forward carried a new weight, a new purpose. The crisis, the theft, the fear, the uncertainty became the catalyst for transformation. Elias understood that life would always hold challenges, but courage, authenticity, and dedication could turn those challenges into stepping stones toward growth and recognition. He painted through the night, each movement confident, deliberate, unafraid. And by the time dawn broke over the city, Elias knew one thing: there was no turning back. His life, once defined by invisibility and struggle, was now a story of persistence, hope, and undeniable talent, a story the world could no longer ignore. In the weeks that followed, Elias's life began to transform in ways he had once only dreamed of. His paintings, once confined to cardboard scraps and hidden corners of the city, now found their way into small galleries, community centers, and private collections. People paused to study his work, moved by the honesty, vulnerability, and humanity embedded in each brushstroke. Elias himself felt the profound shift. No longer invisible, he experienced the rare recognition of his talent, yet he remained deeply grounded. The hardships of his past, the cold nights, the hunger, the feeling of being unseen, had not disappeared, but they now served as a wellspring of empathy and authenticity in his work. Every painting became a bridge between him and the world, a way to communicate the emotions, struggles, and small beauties he had long endured in silence. Clara and the patrons who had believed in him became steadfast supporters, guiding him without overshadowing his voice. The stolen painting, once a source of fear and despair, eventually resurfaced, and its recovery symbolized the delicate balance of trust, courage, and perseverance that had defined his journey. But the most important change was not external. It was within Elias. He had discovered the power of resilience, the strength of remaining true to oneself, and the capacity for human connection in even the most unlikely circumstances. His art was no longer just a tool for survival. It had become a testament to hope, courage, and transformation.